Well, the war is on between the states and our federal government as some state officials are taking on the White House, failing to comply on a number of different issues. Trace Gallagher explains what is going on here from across the country in Los Angeles. Hello there, Trace.
Hey, Martha, Hawaii is again pushing back against the president's travel ban, saying it bans too many people. When the Supreme Court allowed portions of the travel order to go into effect, it exempted those who have a, quote, bona fide relationship with American citizens or entities, meaning students, workers who've been offered employment, and close family members. But the State Department website defined close family members as parents, parent in-laws, spouses, children, including stepkids, as well as siblings, including half and step siblings. Fiancés have recently been added, but grandparents, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, and brother and sisters-in-law are not considered close relations. So the Hawaiian Attorney General wants the definition widened, saying, and I'm quoting, "In Hawaii, close family includes many of the people that the federal government decided on its own to exclude from that definition." U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, referring to the Hawaiian judge who earlier this year ruled against the travel ban, says this amounts to nothing more than sour grapes. Listen.
It's just an activist attorney general. They were slapped down by the Supreme Court. They had an initial victory before a judge in Hawaii that issued an order that bound the whole United States, which is really an overreach, in my opinion. This argument will be heard, of course, and I don't think it will be sustained either.
Meantime, in an effort to prove his widely debunked claim that millions of illegal votes cost him the popular vote in the 2016 election, the Trump administration is requesting voter registration data dating back 10 years from all 50 states, including names, addresses, party affiliation, even military status and felony convictions. And so far, 24 states are refusing to comply. The White House calls the defiance a, quote, political stunt. Martha.
Interesting. Trace, thank you. So here now with more, Congressman Sean Duffy of Wisconsin and Richard Fowler, senior fellow at the New Leaders Council and a Fox News contributor. Good to have both of you with us tonight.
Good to be here, Martha.
Sean, let me start with you, Congressman Duffy. Why are all of these states refusing to turn over that voter roll information?
Listen, I think this is an activist movement by the left. I mean, here you have Democrats who for the last 8 months have been fawning over Russia, and let's have 4 federal investigations into what influence Russia had in our election system. So here you have Donald Trump actually saying, well, why don't we actually look and make sure in our election system that we have people who aren't dead and they're not voting? Why do we make sure that felons aren't voting? Let's have a review of our system completely and wholly. I think that makes sense, and I'm surprised that Democrats aren't joining us. I want to make one point, though. I'm concerned about the federal government also garnering all of this information. I don't like it, whether it's Barack Obama or Donald Trump. But I think there's ways you can isolate that information, look at it, and then destroy it. But the way we could get around this, Martha, to make sure our elections are protected is have voter ID. That's a simple solution.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, it seems to me that every administration at some point wants to reevaluate and take a look at the voter rolls, and whoever's not in power gets very panicked at this notion. However, Richard, isn't it a decent point that the congressman has made that given all of the concerns about possible infiltration into our voting system by the Russians and, whoever else may be out there trying to do that, that taking stock of all of those tallies and all of those rolls would probably be a good idea?
Well, thanks for having me, Martha. First, let me start off by saying Trump's sort of allegations of voter fraud have been debunked by anybody who has common sense. But beyond that point, to go to the congressman's issue, and here's the thing, I think Democrats are willing to work across the aisle to secure our elections. And that's why there was Democrats a couple years back that put out the Fair Voting Act. But we can't even get Republicans to talk about the Voting Rights Act, right, which is the first step, making sure everybody has the right to vote, and then making sure that everybody's right to vote is protected by making sure people who shouldn't vote don't vote. But we cannot get any Republican support, rather, for the Voting Rights Act. And Congressman, I mean, are you a co-sponsor of the bill?
That's not true, Richard.
I'm asking, are you a co-sponsor of the Voting Rights Act bill?
And Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner, a Republican from Wisconsin, is one of the leads on the Voters' Right Act. So don't throw aspersions at Republicans. We just had a situation in Virginia where a young man who's a Democrat was registering 18 dead people to vote in Virginia.
That's a problem.
I mean, this is a real problem. I don't think you can just cast it aside. I mean, we have to take a hard look at what's going on in our election system. I'll look at Russia with you, but let's look at who's actually voting and are they legally voting in our election.
why wouldn't you want to shed some light into the whole system, Richard? I mean, why
Well, here's
wouldn't
the
you
thing,
want to know? I mean, if there's 18 dead people registered to vote, they shouldn't be there. So, I mean, we live in a system, in a country, accountability is very important to everyone. So why wouldn't you want to do that?
I believe in accountability. I believe in transparency. And like I said, I think there are Democrats that are willing to work on how we secure our elections.
So you think that we'll figure out a way to kick the dead people off the voter rolls?
I'm getting there, right? And I think there's Democrats willing to work with that. If Republicans, like Congressman Duffy, would get in line and say, hey, listen, for 60 some odd years we've had the Voting Rights Act in this country. It has not been renewed in almost 8 or 9 years, and Republicans, because they have the majority in the House, are the problem with getting legislation through. If you want to talk to John Lewis, if you want to talk to Democrats who are working on getting it through about how we increase voter protection, then let's have that conversation. Right. But let's not stand in the way of the Voting Rights Act.
I want to get a quick response from Sean Duffy, and then I got to go.
But Richard, I think it's important that you look and say you have Republicans that want to join you in that effort, but you should also join us and make sure we secure our elections, not just in Russia, but use voter IDs and make sure every vote is a lawful vote.
Voter ID is a big step from making sure we protect our elections.
Gotta go, guys. Thank you very much. Good to see you both.
Martha.